Hey guys, so let's continue with the bow, and in this one we're going to set up Crosshair that will also animate based on a draw time, and then we will just fix some issues so we can get ready to actually fire the bow. So first thing we need to do is, I want to do one small fix from the previous video again, because at the moment we do have this issue when if you zoom in or zoom out basically with one of the other weapons that is not bow, this happens because basically when this animation plays only in reverse it will mess it up. So to fix it, what we need to do is find right mouse button event, and here in the end we're going to disconnect these two things, and we're going to do switch here. So we need to get the combat type, current combat type, switch, and what we're going to do is this capsule radius, we only are setting it in the weapons, not on the bow. So we only need to turn it off on all of the weapons. Don't worry about the no weapon. So all of these needs to go here, and then stop bow aim we need to do only in the bow, because we don't want to stop zooming on different weapons. So that will fix the issue, but also to prevent some issues we will have in the future. Because if later on we like firing the bow, and then during that montage if you press couple times to release the button, and then these reverse will get messed up if it doesn't have the variables. We need to actually create variables from this. I'm not sure why it is like that, but it just doesn't work from the values. So what we need to do is drag from it and promote to variable, and this one we can call camera FOV from field of view. And that will just save the value that you have here. And same thing if you promote this one, and we will do camera offset, camera boom, socket offset, and is a long name, so camera boom, socket offset, and compile and save. And that should be all good after, so later on it won't cause us any trouble. So now if I do the same thing, if I zoom out with this weapon, nothing happens. Alright, so we have done that. Now let's create actual Crosshair. So let's go to blueprints, widgets. Here we're going to create new one. So user interface, widget blueprint, and user widget, and this will be Crosshair underscore widget. Open it up, and here I'm going to add canvas panel. I tried to do it with the overlay as well, but just it's way easier to position it with canvas panel, and I know some people mentioned that it might be less performant, but it's not a massive difference. So we will do canvas panel, and then we need to do image. So what I had in mind is we're just going to do two rectangles on the side, dot in the middle, and when we drawing the bow it will get closer together, those rectangles. So we don't need any assets or texture for that. If you want to create nicer textures, you can actually create the arrows that will point inwards and then get closer or something, or you can do circle that will get smaller, or whatever you want, but this one I think looks really nice. So I'm going to anchor it to the middle, Control and Shift and click. And then we're going to change the size of it. Think about this is a whole screen, so maybe like 50 and only like 4 size Y. So we got like a small line. And then I'm going to do position X minus 80, because this one will be on the left, and I'm going to rename it to Crosshair left. I spelled it wrong. Crosshair left, and then we're going to duplicate it. This one will be Crosshair right. Again, it's not anchored, so select the anchor, hold Control and Shift and click, and then this offset it by 80 on X. And then we can create one more image, drag it to canvas panel, anchor it to the middle, Control and Shift and click again, and then this one will be only like 6 and 6, very small one, and we're going to make a circle out of it by just here drawing us rounded box. Right, and we do have a circle. So this is what it will look like. Also, let's rename this to Crosshair middle. And then we can add it to our player HUD. So that's where it will live. And search for Crosshair. Add it to the canvas panel. And here we're going to anchor it to the middle. Again, Control and Shift. Don't worry about the size, it will automatically resize from this crosshair because that has canvas panel as well. So if you play the game now, we should be able to see it, and this is what the crosshair will look like. So very simple, but quite efficient and nice. But if you zoom in the bow, so you will have this and those side rectangles will be zooming in closer or moving closer together. So if you don't like it, I mean, create your custom one. I'll just show you how to move stuff. And then what we need to do now is we need to create a couple of the event dispatchers that will tell the crosshair that it's time to start zooming. But instead of binding it from the player, because it's quite hard to get a player reference if you don't want to cast. So, and we don't want to cast, we want to prevent it from now on. So let's make it in the actual combat component. So right click, edit, and this one is much easier to actually bind. So we're going to create dispatcher, and this one will be start bow zoom, and also one more that will be end bow zoom. Now in this start one, we need to create one input. So click on this new parameter. This one will be float, and this will be draw duration. We named it or something like that. Bow draw duration, or draw time, just draw time. And we have calculated that in the player blueprint in a previous video here from the attack speed divided by player length. And I just noticed this is wrong. This is not supposed to be from this one. Player rate is supposed to be attack speed. So we have attack speed values between, like, I don't know, 0.5 to 2. You shouldn't really do high ones. And that is the player rate, how fast it plays. It's not supposed to be from this one. This will basically give us the animation length divided by the attack speed, which is player rate, and that will give us total time. So, I think I forgot to compile this. It won't bind these events if I don't. So now in the player, let's go here where we got start bow aim, and we're going to get the combat component and call start zoom, start bow zoom, and call it. So call, and we need to pass the variable, which is bow draw time. And then here on end, we need to, from combat component, we need to call end bow zoom. So it will start and stop, compile and save. And let's go to crosshair. Now we need to bind these events. So delete the pre-construct and tick. And we're going to get player character. We only got one, so this will be it, and we will get component by class, not components, just component, and this one will be combat component. Now we can bind the events without the actual casting. So from here we're going to bind event to start bow zoom. Make sure you don't do unbind because that can happen and it won't work. So bind event to start zoom and bind event to end zoom. From here we're going to drag out and search for create event. Same thing here, create event. And whoop, I went back to combat, so crosshair. And here we're going to create matching event, and this one will be start zoom. And the second one, create matching event, end zoom. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to promote this draw time to variable because we want to have it here. So this one will be bow draw time, and we also need one more variable which is float, and that will be seconds. So create one more, seconds float, and we will set it here to 0. So we will always reset it when we start with this. And then we need to actually start the timer by function name. So let's create a function, and this one can be something like change crosshair position, change crosshair position, or zoom crosshair. Let's do zoom crosshair. I never know what to name this. Zoom crosshair. And let's go back to event graph, and here we're going to set timer by function name. Copy the name of this function so it's the same, paste it, and then it will be time 0.01 and we'll be looping. So 100 times per second. And while we're here, we can also add the visibility of this widget. So in the player HUD, we're going to hide it by default. So select the crosshair, and here in visibility we will do hidden, and then in the crosshair we will do set visibility visible. Don't do any reference because that will just make the whole widget visible. And then when we stop, we want to get this visibility and set it to hidden. We also want to reset the seconds here just in case, even though when we're starting it we're resetting it, but you never know. And then we can go to this event zoom crosshair. So in the zoom crosshair, what we want to do is we want to first calculate the seconds. So we get seconds, we add to it. So this function is running 100 times per second, so we need to do 0.01, and that will be our seconds. So we'll set it from here, and then we will check if the seconds is greater or equals bow draw time branch, and if it is, then we need to clear timer by function name, and the function name will be this one here. So as we will stop this function, and we will basically tell player that it's time to fire arrow and stuff. So here on false, if it's not, we need to increase the size, not size, we need to move these crosshairs to the left or to the right. And the way we're going to do that, we're not going to touch the padding, but we do have this render transform available, and you can just see that we can move it on X value or Y value. So leave it at 0, and we're going to change it here. So get crosshair left, set render scale on false. From scale we're going to I don't think it's, is it render scale? No. Where am I? Crosshair left, render, no, it's render transform, sorry. I think scale will scale it up. So set render transform, and from transform we're going to drag from it and make widget transform, and now we have translation X and Y, which is what we need. So we're going to right click, split it, and then we need to generate alpha from this so we can lerp. So first we're going to divide the seconds by bow draw time, and that will give us value between 0 and 1 that will be increasing. So from this we can lerp, linear interpolate. This won't be A, but it will be alpha. So 0 to 1, and based on, so if it's 0, it will be this value A. If it's moving to the B, it will be alpha 1 and the B value and stuff. So it's moving on based on alpha from one value to the second value. So we can move it to like 40, 0 to 40, and connect it to X. We only want to move X. And then we want to get all of this, copy it, paste it, and here we'll replace left one with the right one, and this one will be -40, and don't forget to connect alpha from the same one. So that will start moving it, and we should be able to test it out now. So if I pick up bow, equip it, now you can't see the crosshair. If I start zooming, you can see it zooming in. I can let go and it keeps zooming from the start as long as the animation goes. That's how long it takes to zoom. So you can see there is a little snap in the animation. It's not very visible, but if you look for it, you can probably see it, and that's where you go from actually drawing animation to idle animation. And that's exactly where our crosshair stops animating. So it works perfectly fine. You can do it multiple times. And now what we want to do when it finishes, we want to have a little sound and maybe the flash of the middle part. So the middle circle. So we can actually see it better when we can fire the arrow. So in the crosshair, what we're going to do is we're going to set up animation this time. So go to designer and here select the animations. I'm going to dock it in layout because otherwise it moves annoyingly all the time. And we select crosshair middle. And first we're going to add animation. This one will be something like pulse because we're going to increase the size and then decrease it. Add it here and select crosshair middle. On the frame 0, we're going to key in both of these sizes. So size X and size Y. And then we're going to do a very short animation of like 0.3 because obviously you don't want to animate it for 1 second when it's just to show you that the fire arrow is ready. So it needs to be very quick. So on 0.15, I'm going to increase size X to 8 and key it in. Do the same thing for Y. So 8 and key it in. And then on 0.3, I'm going to reduce the size to 6 and 6. So now, I'm not sure if you can see it very well. It's going to pulse like that very quickly. And then we can also change the color. So go back to frame 0. Select crosshair middle. And we're going to change this, key it in as it is. Color and opacity, add keyframe. And then go to frame 30 and we're going to change it to something, whatever fits your game. I think this yellow one is kind of nice, or like golden. And then key it in again, so that way it will change. I think I changed it. Make sure you don't change it by default on 0 frame to something, unless you want to. So it will pulse and it will change to yellow color. And now we can go back to graph. So when we finish, when we reach the timer, we're going to get this animation, pulse, and play animation. Connect it here. And we also want to play sound. So here we don't need to change anything. Start time is 0. We only want to play it once. Forward playback speed is fine. And then play sound. 2D. We don't want to do it on location because you want to hear it all the time. And here we do have some default sounds. I don't have anything downloaded for now, but there are some ones that work. I think it's something like object. One of these maybe, search for it, there is some default engine sounds. I'll do this object pickup. Object snaps to grid. This one here. That will be my sound for now. And then playing the animation, that's fine. One more issue that might happen is if we eventually fire the arrow and it will start zooming again, this crosshair in the middle will stay yellow. So what we need to do is we need to, in the beginning, we need to get this crosshair middle and set color and opacity, and we will change it to white as it was, or whatever your default color is, and then copy it and paste it here on the bottom. We need to do that here as well, again just in case. And what else? And we also need to reset the position, but we won't do that here, we will do that on fire arrow event. So for now this should be fine, but we want to also tell the player when the zooming is finished that we can fire the arrow. We will handle the functionality here, because in the case that we have some discrepancies between the timer here and the timer of the montage, it wouldn't just look very good if you can fire before the animation is finished, which won't probably happen, but you know, we're trying to prevent everything. So in this zoom crosshair, here in the end, when we actually reach the end of the timer, we do a function, interface function that we can call from get player character, and we're going to call, I think it's either add action tag, add tag, no, set gameplay tag. Yeah, set gameplay tag message. And let's go back to player. We need to create one. So in gameplay tags, we're going to, under character and checks, we're going to add new one, and this one will be character.checks.can fire arrow. Add this tag, and here in a crosshair we can now select it. So character checks can fire arrow. So now the player knows that he can fire the arrow, so we can actually fire it. But then we won't be doing all the functionality for firing arrow here, because then this video would be super long again. There is quite a lot of stuff that we need to actually change on the right mouse button and left mouse button, so it works together really well. But for now, what we can do, we will need to set up one more event dispatcher that will tell this crosshair that we have fired the arrow, and it needs to go back to its normal size. So it needs to go back where it belongs, the size and color and stuff. So we can't just call this zoom end, because that hides the visibility as well. And we want to keep this hide visibility when we cancel the zooming and we hide it. But when, let's say, you just fire the arrow but you continue zooming, we want to still see this widget. So we need to create one more dispatcher. So in the combat component, click on a new one, and this one will be fire arrow. Compile it. Let's go to crosshair and we'll bind it again. So from this component, we're going to bind event to fire arrow. Drag from it, create event, and this one's giving me, what have I done? Did I not compile something? Save all. Create event. There we go. Okay, so create matching event, fire arrow. And what we want to do here, we fire the arrow, so seconds will go to 0. Color and opacity will go back to white. And from this function zoom crosshair, we need to get these two, crosshair left, crosshair right, just the render transform, copy it, and add it here. And connect it, connect the second one. And we don't need to change the transform here, because by default it's 0, so you don't even need to make it. So that will reset it. And now, I'm not sure if we can test it, probably on some button. If you have one of these buttons, we can just get combat component and call fire arrow. So when I press N, I will fire arrow. And now if I play the game and try to zoom in, so this is playing normally, and now I press N, it will reset. For now, obviously we're not continuing to zoom, so it's not resetting correctly, but we will do that as well in the next one. For now I just wanted to do a crosshair. So that's working fine. If you release and start again, that's all good. Oh, and one more thing we need to change. You can see that sometimes it's yellow when it's starting, so we need to go back to crosshair. We need to also stop the animation, because what happens is I cancel it, I started it quickly, but the animation is playing, so it ends up on the orange color. So get these pools and stop animation, even if it's playing or if it's not. And same thing on fire arrow, and same thing here on zoom in. So that's it, all fixed for zooming now. So in the next one, as I said, we need to fix some stuff here, so we will be able to like continue firing arrow, and then we will add the fire arrow animation. And after we have fixed all of that, and if we have time, we will actually start spawning the arrows, but that will probably be a separate video, so we can spawn arrows, do like a trail, do calculate where it's supposed to fly and stuff like that. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.